And this is something which is, even if it's not defined, have a tangible consequences. If you are running the NKU, if the rector Sadownici, he doesn't have to worry about what kind of quality of the students who want to apply. Yeah, he can pick up the best because we have the reputation. You can probably, it's easier, it never easier to acquire new resources. Okay, the funding from from those who are willing to give you the money, even from the government. It's easier for Rector Sadownici, I'm using as to ask for the government for the money than somebody who is, I don't know from where. That's when their reputation translates into concrete results. But why there is a renewed attention to funding of higher education? And let me and here is maybe I'm now trying to be sympathizing with you as lawyers. It's more maybe easier for understanding of for the economists, but funding is not only distribution of the money. It is the way how we fund the things also reflect a certain policy preferences. So the state and always the resources are always limited. There's no unlimited resources. Even the rich countries have to understand that there are limits. But funding of higher education has now received a particular attention because the higher education nowadays is, and it is not just the academic self-promotion, but there really is the important part of the economy, and we can say that nowadays without higher education the society cannot develop. So there are sometimes a reference, and here I use the term knowledge-based economy. Ekonomia na znanie. Czyli związek między ekonomią, развитием и знанием. There's the knowledge-based economy is essential for the social advancement. So if it's even such, I'm quoting here the present president of France, François Hollande, which in his one of the speeches, not such a new one, but still relevant, he's just using that this is the funding is not just this kind of the buchalterne operacje. It's not the accounting operation. It is a conscientious decision in which the state is making a certain preferences. And in this regard, as I just said, those preferences relate to higher education, which should be understood also in the broader sense. There's also another aspect why there's such a renewed attention to the funding, because higher education, and I cover also the research, is from the point of view of the state engaging quite a substantial resources. It's the mass higher education, the research. It is an important part in the state budget, and the state is therefore very attentive. If it was a small undertaking, that wouldn't be so important, but because the money which are involved, our the colleague who is in charge of the funding of RUDN can tell you, it's a big enterprise. It's a lot of money go through the university on daily basis. If you take into consideration the number of employees, number of services which have to be provided in order for this university to function, there's a big enterprise. Usually, universities are in one of the largest employers in a many urban environment. So this is why it is important to keep in mind that the higher education is an expensive undertaking. Well, here is another problem. How to allocate the funding? If we have, in our earlier slides, I was telling you why the excellence matters, reputation. Yeah? And then my second argument was that the state or corporations or the society at large, to better say this, is concerned with the way how the level of funding is substantial and so. So now I'm moving into combining the two elements. One is the funding and another is excellence. So why funding excellence? And excellence is in this regard, and you will see it later on, I will give you concrete examples, is more than just the performance-based funding. Because, the performance-based, it is nowadays an accepted modality of allocation of money. You say that you don't give the money for the beauty. You give money because you expect a certain performance, a delivery of the certain things. And this is, you don't distribute it equally. You give this one who can, and you ask for the assurance that you can actually deliver what you actually prove. But because of this importance of higher education and the second reality, which I did not mention here, but the globalization, yeah, in which competition nowadays is not only at the local or national level, but at the more and more on the global level. The corporations are, the trade is much more globalized, the relations are in other areas. So it's not only in the sport in which we compete globally, but also in higher education and research. Actually, the research was always competing internationally, but more nowadays we are not only competing in the domain of research, but also with regard to you here who are the students. Institutions of higher education compete for their students not only in one country, but around the world. That's the issue of international competitiveness comes forward. And certain countries take the decision in order to enhance the capacity for competition. They say, let us find a certain resources which we will allocate in order to enhance this competitiveness. So we will be, by doing this, our universities, our research institutes will be better at such level, this level of excellence, in which they will be able to compete with the top. It's not with the lower level, but at the top. And nowadays there are more than 50 countries which have such competitive arrangements. And they are very, of course, it's not one solution. So there are various countries take various decisions, and there are various modalities for the funding of excellence, because they believe that by doing this we will improve, we'll become more excellent. Some others think that the other approach. And here I have presented to you a small list of such solutions. There is one that you create a new institution. You say, I will allocate a certain amount of money, of funding, so that you create a new institution. And here is an example from Finland, in which the government gave the money so that a new institution is created. It's called Aalto University, which is created on the basis of the 3 smaller institutions of higher education, combined and created such a. The argument for such decision is that you create, you have a critical mass. You have, in that regard, it was also an idea of interdisciplinarity, because they matched the College of Teacher Training with the College of Arts, and so there were 3 colleges, an economics college, and they combined it and created this university, which is Aalto University. There is another approach, is that you put the money in order to create or help creation or upgrading of the existing institutions, and you have this category of the so-called world-class universities. World-class universities is usually those which are performing well in the international rankings. When I introduced myself, I told you that there's these 2 categories: one, the national and international rankings. And I make the reference here about 2 countries, India and China, that they said that because we are moving our economies not to cheap labor, but to more technologically advanced, and in order to do this, we need, where's the inventions are created, and in order to have innovation, you have to have a research, and there's a chain of innovation. We start with the universities, and both those countries, which are now powerhouses of the economy in the world, consciously allocate very substantial amount of money, and you will see later on, in order to create those institutions. Russia is also a good example of it. The project 5100. You know what I'm talking about. In which RUDN University is participating. The idea was that the 5100 is, I would say, is not the political objective anymore. It is a nice way to frame this idea. It came with an idea pronounced by President Putin that 5 Russian universities by the year 2020, or a little bit later, will be in the first 100, among first 100 in the international rankings. Okay. It's not so important that there will be really 5 or 4 or 3. But for the time being, it's only 1. Which one? Come back to reputation. Which one? MGU. Yeah, you see, it's not only reputation, It's not only pokazucha. No, it has to be delivered. It has to be something inside. They are really actually fantastic researchers. But it's not enough. Russia and the leaders of this country rightly realize that you need more of those highly performing universities. And in order to have those highly performing universities, we are ready to invest the new resources extra to the resources which you usually allocate. So that's the, and it's not only, as I said, it's not only India, China, Russia, and this is something which is this argument that we need in order to be competitive. We need those world-class universities. The next way of achieving this excellence is through funding certain schemes. You know, you have an idea of the so-called centers of excellence. You decide that you need to develop more medical research, or legal studies, or certain biotechnology. So you put the money to create not the whole university, but a certain area. Okay, and this is the so-called centers of excellence. You might have an argument that in order that you think that in order to be excellent, you need to stimulate training of the young researchers. Without most of the young people are the source of the new developments. If you look at the age of those who are now very successful in the telecommunications and informatics, with the age of Zuckerberg, or the age when Bill Gates was creating Microsoft, and all those with Apple, okay, the Jacobs and the others, the first ideas they were very young, and that's true. There's a certain how to say it, creativity. It does not preclude that it's not forbidden to be creative later on, but we know that's the reality. That's the new things are foremost coming from the younger people. And if you follow this argument, then you think that we need to have those young researchers, and where those young researchers are formed in the doctoral schools. And you can say, if you want to be nasty, you can say that there's some of them were actually dropouts. Bill Gates did not graduate from Harvard. The same is with Zuckerberg, and so. But usually, if you look at the bigger picture, those people still have the tendency to graduate. Yeah. I hope that you will not think about. Yeah.
Maybe one question.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and you have any questions, or you have. Then interrupt me. I don't mind it. I like it if it's more interaction than just one way. Again, it's coming to this rather difficulty. How to define this? For those who designed this project, there was the idea of the first 100. Okay. Usually, we consider those who are performing well in the global rankings. Global rankings vary between themselves. Shanghai ranking covers 500 institutions, publish the information about 500 institutions. However, they evaluate but don't publish because differences are very small, therefore they don't present the list, but they collect information about, they identify as world-class universities more than 500, 1,000. Some rankings cover 700. So because of this differences, but this is something I would say that in the world there's probably 1,500 of these world-class universities who permanently, if you look at the other indicators like the number of publications, and we're talking now only about the universities, but there's also the other sector, which in case of Russia is quite important, is the Academy of Sciences. Or in Germany you have such institutes which specialize in research, Max Planck Institute, Humboldt, and so on. So I would not, it doesn't have to be 100. In case, as I said also, it is probably, if there will be evaluation at a certain moment of the project 5100, and if it will happen so that it will be 2 universities or 3 universities first 100, but 2 others will be in the 150 or 160, I think that the policymakers will be still satisfied. But nowadays, if you look at something in Shanghai ranking, you have MGU, then you have St. Petersburg, and then nothing, and only go later on at the bottom. You will of this 500 will be Novosibirsk and Kazan. Yeah, Kazan. Yes, that's true. So, and then you can ask, there's almost 800 institutions of higher education in Russia. So it's a top. But you also, if I can say, it's it's not so bad. It's not something which is satisfactory, but not so bad. Generally speaking, we have a fairly good opinion about American higher education. Yeah? Did you hear about bad American universities or very? Oh, the good one, the California, Caltech, you have California System, and Harvard, Yale, all those Ivy League institutions. But please keep in mind, I am the product of American higher education. I studied in the United States and done my PhD there and started my academic career there. So I'm interested to promote the standing, the reputation of American universities. But I just want to tell you that in the United States there are nowadays almost more than 3,500 institutions of higher education, вузов. But majority of those institutions are so-called community colleges, which does not even give the first bachelor's degree. They provide certificate. The usually duration of the studies is 2 years, and then you go to colleges which give only bachelor's, which is in the United States is 4 years. Then you go up, which is a master's degree, and professional schools, which is 1 year more, and the professional schools, medicine, it can be 6 years, and then only 300 institutions in the United States are the so-called research universities, which also give the PhD, doctoral degrees. And out of it, only 60 universities are the top class universities, and they are belonging to the organization which is called American Association of Universities, which has, by the statute, has 60 universities only. So if you want to aspire for the statute, somebody has to follow, plus 2 Canadian universities. So you see, it's a pyramid. But because of the prestige and the really good performance of those of the top, also this reputation falls out on all other institutions. So that is something I want you to understand, that this is the issue of reputation is very important. Yeah. Well, and there is a last but not least argument that you put additional money because you want that our universities became advanced with the various rankings. And there are some examples of it. Here is one example of such initiative. It is this, what I mentioned to you, this we put the money in order to create top world-class universities. And India, which has enormous system, enormous system, they decided that we will create the 20 world-class universities, 10 public and 10 private. So it is the latest decision of the government of India to implement this policy decision. And in order to, as our conversation today is about funding mechanism, in order to allocate those resources, they have created a funding agency in the form of the non-profit organization. And the role of this agency will be to generate also the income coming from the industry, and then in order to allocate those resources. Now there's a question always, what the mechanism you choose in order to say that I will give you to you, but not to you. And they are, and this is something which was quite a surprise, that they have accepted the mechanism of ranking. So it will give only to those who are in our ranking performing at a certain level. In India, it's a footnote to it. It was very against the idea of ranking, because the ranking is not so loved by everyone. And they look at the amount of money which they put, $150 billion for it. It's not small amount of money, just for 20 universities. So just divide quickly how much money is one university will get. Yes.
In Russia, our government spent only 10 billion rubles for 21 universities.
So, you see, that was the decision. Maybe India economic situation allows them to do this. Maybe they were able or decided to take more money from other sectors, and to move it to that one. The problem of India is they also have seen the progress of China, and there's a competition also. The countries are competing. Anyway, they decided to do this, and that was I wanted to tell you that it's such country like India. Here, I make a reference to quite a comprehensive, which means that they have Germany has decided that we will not use only one approach. Like Finland, they use only one approach, created a new institution by merger. India will create those world-class universities. Germany had a slightly different approach, and they decided in 2005 that they will have the so-called Excellence Initiative in order to enhance competitiveness and performance of the German universities by certain activities. And this is here presented as 3 lines. The first line is establishment of more of the 40 research schools and doctoral schools. You remember I told you about this. If your idea about promotion of excellence is creating of the doctoral schools, then you go into it. And as we are talking about money, it's 1 million if you win the competition with your project for creation of the doctoral schools, because then if it's doctoral schools, you have to say in which domain it will be. The doctoral schools for training lawyers, okay? And if you win such a competition, then you will get it 1 million euros, because we are in the European Union and Germany has euro adopted, per year. It's it's not a bad, but it's not a particularly great amount. The second one is creation of the 30 clusters of excellence that are connected to universities, and at the same time they are also having the collaboration with the leading German research institutes. I mentioned to you that it's like in Russia, in Germany, there are research organizations which are not in the universities, even if most of the research is done in the universities, but which are very famous, like Humboldt Institute, like Max Planck Institute, and so on, as well as collaboration with industry. You know, there's some of the leading companies. I just recently read an article about collaboration of the German chemical giant, BASF. I don't know if you've heard about BASF. You know, it's a real, one of the largest chemical enterprise in the world. It's you Google it and you will see it, and they collaborate with 600 universities in the world. 600 universities doing the various research. So the second line was designed as to promote to create those certain clusters of excellence. And the money we are talking about is 6.5 million euros for each center of excellence. And the third line is selection of 11 universities, so-called the University of the Future, University of Excellence. In Germany, has something like 90 universities. So again, you take a very political decision, because in Germany the level differences in the level and the quality of education, higher education, is not so big. It are fairly consistent. They might historically justify reputation, and not only historically, but they may be more performant in various rankings. But generally speaking, if I earlier said that the American higher education is like a pyramid, and then you have at the top the highly performing. In the case of Germany, it's the fairly flat structure. You know, as the differences are not so big. But Germany realized that in order to move forward, you need more competition. You need diversification, and this is exactly the idea. Now about money. They decided that they will allocate for the years 2005-2012, a budget for the whole initiative is almost 2 billion euros. It's big money. In 2009, government, when I talk about government, Germany is a federal state, like Russia. You know, it's even the German federalism is more pronounced. You know, because why it is more pronounced, at least from the point of view of the higher education? Because higher education is at the responsibility of the land, you know, the part of Germany. Only research is funded from the federal budget. The same arrangement is in Canada. Only research is coming from the federal budget, but from the other ones come from the provinces. So they decided that they will continue the project, the Excellence Initiative, until the year 2017, and they will allocate 2.7 billion euros. And what they have done is that they will allocate most of the money for these institutional strategies, for development of these excellent universities, and they call them Zukunft, future universities. So that's an example of of Germany. The next example which I wanted to show you is France. They have this excellence initiative. They went in a slightly different direction because they put most of the money in the centers of excellence. And the amount of money is also big, because we are talking about 35 billion euros, but it's not specified for how many years this program will be. There's a certain degree of ambiguity with regard to the yearly allocation of money. Recently, the government has decided to allocate those 2 million extra money for the regional university centers. It's because, you know, France, like Russia, is a country in which there's a clear distinction between the intensity of the intellectual research life between, as we use in sociology, the STEM center and periphery. Now, if it is in France, most of the things are in Paris or in Lyon, and in the certain cities, I will not name them, you know, there's not so easy to deliver the high performance. The same is in Russia, you know, the Moscow and St. Petersburg, maybe Novosibirsk, but Kazan, and then you go
Tomsk.
Less. Yeah, Tomsk, yes, yeah, Vladivostok also is but you still have that most of these things it's easier for somebody to attract the good professor to work in St. Peter or in Moscow than in Tomsk or even Novosibirsk. That's Novosibirsk anyway was created on the basis of very strategic decisions linked to the past reality. Nevertheless, in case of France, it was that you need to develop this to support the regional university because the discrepancy was there. The same was with the idea was the Russian project 5100. You know, at the beginning it was a very small number. Only later on, under the pressure from the regions, they enlarged the number of institutions benefiting from this project. Why? In order to slightly reduce this privileged position of the established centers of academic excellence. Well, we are coming to an end of my presentation, and what we learn from those initiatives, and what we can suggest for the policymakers, and to use the experience of existing initiatives for further policy actions in this direction. First of all, there is an acceptance. No, that's the academic community is, I would say, quite a democratic community. Even if we recognize differences, but ethos of the academia is that we are the same, as an individual. Institutionally, maybe there's a difference of reputation, but professor is a professor. Student is a student. So that's there is some resistance towards differentiation. But nowadays, we are learning that we accept these differences. Yeah? Unwillingly, in some cases, in some countries, there's a criticism. For example, in Germany, there was quite a strong one. The same is in France and in the other countries. So it's not surprised that you will read in the media there's a view that those initiatives are not performing as expected and so. the most of the resources which are allocated. Now, I gave you an example of differentiation. It was particularly clear in case of the German initiative that most of the money went to those to those initiatives which aim was creation of these world-class universities. The most money are going to this creation of those highly performing universities. This elite, we somewhat. It is agreed that the most efficient way for achieving this high excellence is through the creation of those world-class universities. However, whatever criteria we will adopt. There's also a certain additional effect of the introduction of the various excellence initiatives, that it is easier for the policymakers to allocate other money, from on the basis of the performance. So that's the whole, how to say, climate for allocation for policy, for funding policies is changing, because people accept those, differences, that because you recognize that not all the universities, all the universities are capable. They don't have enough good researchers, young people, and therefore it is easier also in other areas to allocate the resources in the selective way. We will see if it is good or bad, that's but that's the conclusion. Now here is the observation that despite all the shortcomings of rankings, that's the rankings are used as a measure of success. I made the reference in that all these initiatives in excellence which specifically talk about the moving up of the university in the various rankings. Because the rankings are, I don't know if you maybe one general comment so that you understand better what the rankings are about. Okay? If we agree that we need to assess the performance, the quality of what we are doing in higher education, you need a certain mechanism. What are the mechanisms which we have at hand? What the policymaker have, society and policymaker? In the past, in the Soviet time, it was the government or the party in the government said that this will be university in Novosibirsk, it will be in Tomsk, will be historic, or they will continue in Leningrad or in Moscow. So it was the government had assumed the responsibility about the certain standards, to create the university. So they were providing the buildings, the staff, infrastructure. Nowadays, governments as a principal stakeholder is still funding, but funding and creating public institutions. What about the private higher education institutions? So we have adopted a mechanism which is called accreditation. You've heard about this? Yeah? Accreditation is an American invention. It is the license to practice. There is an organization which is usually independent of the government, independent of the universities, and they say, they use the methodology and they say, we analyze your proposal of the certain institution. You can have accreditation at the institutional level, but most of the accreditation is done at the program level. So it's a program of the law. You know, there's a accreditation of the law school, right? Or the program faculty of law, because the criteria for the assessment of the faculty of law will be then different than in medicine. Okay? It's straightforward and quite logical. So what we have now is this accreditation, okay? As something which is a license to practice plus the guarantee of certain standards. So it's here you have the accreditation. It's a guarantee that you, as a student, have that they will be delivered. It's like, you know, the guarantee when you buy the fridge or the car, that when you buy the guarantee that it will perform at a certain level. And this is accreditation. And of course, various mechanisms. Accreditation is sometimes conditional, sometimes it's for a certain period of time, la 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 la. So that, but we are not going into the detail. What is important, what I would like you to retain, by understanding the accreditation is a minimum. It is not a certificate of the quality. You can say that institution or the program which have accreditation is definitely better than that one which doesn't have accreditation. Actually, in certain jurisdictions, and Russia is that the case, if you don't have accreditation, you should not admit the students. Yeah? Because, you know, the value of your diploma is practically close to zero. Okay? So that is something which is, this is accreditation. Ranking is different. Ranking is telling you that you are performing, that in one university is performing better than the other, than the next one, than the next one, and you put them in the numerical order, so that the university is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Sometimes, you know, for example, I made the reference to the Shanghai rank. They publish this numerical order for the first 100. Then they group them, and so and so on. So you see, if I can use the plastic presentation, accreditation is like this, and you are accredited, so you are above the standards. But while ranking is like this, and this is so that's the basic difference between the accreditation and ranking. There is also something which is called benchmarking. You know what is benchmarking? No. Okay. Some know. That's the benchmarking is, again, I will use the gesture for explaining. Benchmarking is that an exercise in which you, let's say us, yeah, we have established a benchmarking for the faculty of law. Yeah? That the faculty of law, in our opinion, in order to be good, we don't say excellent, but good, should have this standard, this, such a number of professors, covering such areas, constitutional law, corporate law, family law, la 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 la, international law, and we agreed that these are the benchmark, and this is our standard, and then we make the comparison, right? And we say, we are not good here. We don't have enough professors in the international law or the international corporate law, and so we have a set of standards, and we compare how it's a benchmark. And this standards, as I said, we have established ourselves. Okay, sometimes those benchmarking are made by somebody else, but you compare it to it. So you the benchmark is kind of the standard, and you can sometimes go below the standard or above the standard or below. Yes, that's the, and it is practiced that sometimes some institutions create an agreement between themselves in order to improve mutually, to benefit from the experience, and they create the so-called benchmarking clubs. The universities, few universities, not too many, okay, say that let's benchmark the faculties of law. Okay? And here comes the MGU, RUDN, Hudson University, and we have in this benchmarking exercise we will compare ourselves, and it is usually, that's the rules of the game, are that benchmarking exercises are usually confidential. It's a self-improvement mechanism. There's a certain benchmarking procedures, and this is therefore you didn't hear about the benchmarking. You've heard probably about accreditation, you've heard about the outcome of rankings, but not about the benchmarking. But that's the situation. What else we know about it? The excellence initiatives sometimes are kind of the flagship. I'm returning again to my presentation of the value of the American higher education. That's because small but very performant research intensive universities, they have a kind of the consequence that the reputation benefits those institutions which are below there. Usually, and that is something accepted, is that the evaluation of the performance of the institutions participating in various excellent initiatives is done usually by the international bodies. For example, I am participating, I came here to RUDN together with some other colleagues from various countries, and we are, this is what was in the morning, what we are doing, we were evaluating the strategic plan of your university in the context of the 5-100. So we are exactly in this group of international experts evaluating the performance of the university participating in the excellence initiative. This is actually, in case of the 5-100, is in the rule of the project. So the RUDN is obliged to have such body like us, and this is why I'm here. And I was elected for 1 year the chairperson of this one. So we have an interaction this morning, and we'll continue it tomorrow, with the leadership of the university, rectors, vice rectors, deans, people at the top management, and they make their presentations. Yeah? We listen to those presentations. We have documents, of course, which are prepared. We ask the questions. They ask us for the recommendations, and this is how this. And this is usually done, as I said. It's not enough that it's the national evaluation team, but it's international. Well, let's be frank. It is also true that participation in those competitions is a burden. You can ask our colleague who is in charge of the accounts of your distinguished university. There is additional work. There's additional bureaucracy. for, you know, if you don't believe in it, or you might say, why to bother? You know, I had such a good life, you know, I had to teach a certain amount of hours, I had to do certain research, and here now I have to talk to the foreigners, to the strangers, I have to prepare this. So it's you ask, and maybe if the money is not too big, you might even say that is it worthy? Yeah? But as I told you, and we started our conversation about reputation, I think that when I look at the money which if you compare the total budget of RUDN University, and the amount of money which RUDN will receive because it won the competition, it's not such a big money. If you look at just in the money. But from the point of view of the reputation, which you will benefit, because when you graduate and you will say, you know, I'm coming from this. I don't want to say that there was no reputation before. No, what I'm saying is, anyway, all those initiatives are not usually not from the zero. It's the enhancement more than just the creation from zero of the reputation. So anyway, that's I would say is the still worthy the effort. That's the last but not least. It's not the punishment. You volunteer for it. You know, it's the you understand that this is the good for the university to participate in such undertakings.